Startups. We cover them a lot on this channel, and generally startups are pretty great. You have things like company offsites at ski resorts, or there are offices with fancy espresso bars in them so you can get coffee whenever you want. But despite these really positive benefits, there are some overlooked negative aspects of startups. And that's what we're gonna go over today. Whether you're considering joining a startup or you're at a startup and you just wanna see if your experience is comparable to the rest of the industry, we are gonna talk some of the more negative things that you can expect to deal with when you do join a startup. We're talking everything from job security to compensation. Could that sound any more boring? I'm gonna talk about why the flashiest elements of a startup could actually be the most dangerous. You can see everything we're gonna cover, and it's all timestamped in the description. So with that in mind, let's get into the first thing that you should be wary about when you're joining a startup, and that is hire fast, fire fast. With a sensitive topic like job security, I asked ChatGPT for a joke. So let's lighten the mood with this joke from OpenAI. Why did the new employee get fired on his first day? Because he took the term learning on the job too literally and tried to learn how to work the copy machine by making copies of his pink slip. Best, worst joke ever? If you've been paying attention to the news at all, you've seen that there have been tons of layoffs across big tech companies. And while these layoffs go to show that companies can shed a high percentage of their workforce pretty quickly, I think the overall sentiment here is this hire fast, fire fast. A lot of these companies bulked up over the last 2 years. They're expecting growth. They need to throw capable, talented people at these problems in order to accelerate growth when everything was taking off in 2020, 2021. But when the growth stops, then the companies can't afford to keep investing in all of these people, so they have to do some layoffs. This is much faster and happens more frequently at early stage startups. Quite frankly, these early stage startups just don't have enough money where if someone that they bring on isn't able to solve the problem or help push the ball forward or grow the company, then they don't have time to keep them around and train them and find another role. They need to let them go. Now, it's not crazy for people to hire people and learn within the first couple months that they may not be the right fit for a job. I mean, this is like a motto in startups: hire fast, fire fast. So if you are considering getting into startups, understand that just as quickly as these benefits come, a lot of volatility can occur, in which case you may be left without a job even months after you start. In that notion of hire fast, fire fast, there's this idea that we need people to be solving these problems and growing all the time, which means there is a little bit of this "what have you done for me lately" at startups. Here's an example. Let's say it's sales. Someone comes in and is able to secure a couple big accounts right away that are transformational for the company. And then 6 months go by or a year goes by and they haven't been able to reproduce the success of those first 6 months. Even though there's a lot of factors that may determine why that happened in the first 6 months versus over the first 18 months, people are going to be evaluated on like their last year or more likely the last 6 months or 3 months. And if things aren't happening, that's another reason for your career at this startup to slow. In my experience, there is this little "what have you done for me lately" aspect of the culture, and it's just something to keep in mind because when you go for reviews or whatever, you're always going to be needing to sell that you've done something recently in order to push to the next level. This next one may sound like the last two, but it's different, and it's the overall hustle culture of working at startups. Now, we've talked about hire fast, fire fast. We've talked about what have you done for me lately. But if you think about a startup, again, startups need to grow fast, and usually they're smaller teams, and the founder is so heavily invested in the mission of the startup. And so what this creates is a founder who is really obsessive about having this company succeed. So the founder is going to be online, writing emails, writing Slacks, writing down ideas and all of that sort of stuff. With startups, it's all Slack messages. It's people being available 24/7 to fill out a thread or talk about what they're going to do the next day. If you were to join a startup or if you're at a startup right now, I don't think it's strange if you're expected to be online beyond just the 9 to 5 hour. The more you can be available, the more you can contribute, the more visible you're going to be in the organization, and that may end up helping you. And what this ends up doing is reinforcing a extremely strong hustle culture where the idea is work, obsess, try and move this ball forward 24 hours a day. I'll just take a break to sleep and then I'll be up and I'll be thinking about this, and we need to move fast, we need to succeed. So that is absolutely part of most startup cultures. Those ski outings and espresso bars that we talked about, those are afforded by companies who have a lot of money in the bank. Companies get a lot of money in the bank from raising venture capital or launching a product that's really well received, or just continuing to grow a profitable operation so more cash funnels back into the bank. Let's say the company closes this fundraising round and they do all of these outings and whatnot, and then in a couple months they're not hitting the expectations that they thought they were, which means more money's coming out of the bank than they anticipated. If companies aren't meeting expectations, people get less excited about them and their ability to raise money goes down. So over the course of like a couple months or half a year, you could go from being a hot, recruited startup where venture capitalists are bidding on you as much as they possibly can to get involved, to a place where you're just almost begging for meetings so that people will listen for why you're going to change the trend that's happening right now. And this creates an incredibly stressful situation for employees. Let's say the company checks all the boxes, they're in good financial health, all these benefits, you're not worried about them going away. One of the most overlooked things that I think you have to keep in mind when considering startups is compensation. So the general rule of thumb with startup compensation is you want as many options as you can get, right? That's how people get rich. You get a lot of options at a startup. The startup grows really quickly. That means your options are worth a ton of money. And whenever there's a liquidity event like the company sells or IPOs, you end up collecting a big check. But that's not always the case. And in fact, there are many times where it works against you. So there are some famous examples of this happening. I think there was a company called Gilt or something where late stage employees bought a bunch of their options and even maybe took out loans to get some options. And then the outcome of the company was much less than expectations. So the people who had put down this deposit to make a ton of money in the future, they ended up losing this very significant deposit. So there is this scenario in which you kind of like YOLO an insanely large amount of money, perhaps like a big portion of your savings, and it is still a very risky investment. So yes, startups have a lot going for them. Fun work, you work with really talented people, you work in a fast-paced environment, your work can influence the direction of the company, you can scale things quickly, you get a lot of resources at your disposal, and you go on outings or get to bond with the team in awesome ways. And these are all of the best parts of startups. There is this dark side of startups, and it generally has to do with how high of expectations the momentum is for the company and the growth. And if that starts to plateau, then this comes with a lot of potentially negative things. Hire fast, fire fast. The expectation that you're going to be online 24/7. The compensation where your options may be worth less than you had planned for them to be worth, and so on. So just like everything, when you're looking at these images or Instagrams of how fun it is to work at a startup, know that behind the scenes, there's more going on. I hope you found this helpful, and if you like more business content, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.